Everybody wants to know about the Benoliel family background, about your parents, your grandparents, how you got to this country, how they got to this country, the siblings in your family, and such. So, Rabbi, if you can give us a flavor and some color on your mom and dad, your grandparents, and make us understand what it was like growing up in the Benoliel family back years ago.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Harry. We'll begin with my mother's side of the family. My mother is Maimon, and her father was Chacham Avraham Maimon, who was originally the Chacham in Tekirdağ, Turkey. And in 1924, the small Sephardic community in Seattle proposed to him and offered him to come to Seattle, to come to the United States to be the Chacham in Seattle. And he was very positive to accept the offer, mainly because, as I understand, his sons were teenagers and would be of the draft age, and that would be just a calamity to be drafted into the Turkish army. So in 1924, the family came over to Seattle, Washington. My mother at that time was 9 years old, and she has many stories about the coming over to Seattle. But in brief, and just as a side, she used to reminisce that Tekirdağ, the homeland, the home city, was beautiful, a beautiful city on the water. And I heard from her or from others that the shul, the Bet Knesset in Tekirdağ, was literally on the water. In other words, you could hear the lapping of the water under the boards of the floor of the shul. And many years later, I heard from a cousin that he read in one of the books of Rabbi Chaim Palachi, that's all, that water is conducive to prayer. And he says, like the shul in Tekirdağ, where the shul was built on the water. So that was amazing. But anyway, they came to Seattle, and my grandfather, I was not zochet to know him. He passed away only a few years after that. And so we go to my father. My father, Alav Shalom, was born in Manchester, England. And that's a different branch of Sephardim. So the Sephardim of the Balkan states, of Turkey, Ladino speaking. And there are the Sephardim of England, originally from Gibraltar and Morocco. But they were also Spanish speaking. And he came over as a young man through Canada. And he was told, it's a little story, maybe we won't get into details there of how he came to Seattle, but he was informed by the rabbi in Vancouver that there's a Sephardic community in Seattle. And he came to Seattle and met my mother, and they were married in 1936.
First on my mother's side, when Rabbi Abraham and his wife came over from Turkey, they brought with them initially 6 of their 8 children, 5 boys and our mother. The 2 oldest were the 2 firstborn sisters. They were too old to come under the family passport, so they had to wait. And they came in later through Canada, and it was a long story of how all that worked out. So my mother had 5 brothers and 2 sisters. As we were children growing up in Seattle, all but one of those 8 siblings, one who unfortunately for health reasons had to move to a different environment, they were all married and raising families in in the neighborhood surrounding, basically within walking distance to the Sephardic Bibolim. So as we were children growing up, we were surrounded by aunts and uncles,
Right.
cousins. I didn't count the cousins, but certainly more than 20. Interestingly enough, many more boys than girls. Just as an example, among the three sisters, my mother and her two sisters, there were 11 boys and 2 girls. So we were all very, very close, tight-knit, growing up in the comfort of that surroundings. I just want to embellish a little bit on the Benoliel side of the story. Coming from a very well-known, successful, and prominent Benoliel family in Morocco. They were from Tetuan and Tangier and emigrated at some point to Gibraltar. In Gibraltar, the chief rabbi, Rabbi Yitzhak Levi, was my father's great-grandfather. The chief rabbi of Gibraltar's daughter, Leticia, married his grandfather, Moshe Chaim Benoliel, and they were the ones who moved from Gibraltar to Manchester. At that time, Manchester was a business hub because of the Industrial Revolution. All the merchants who were involved in cotton and in wool and in textiles had to have representation where the mills were being developed in Manchester. So all throughout the Mediterranean, you saw a tremendous outflow towards Manchester. That included our Benoliel side of the family, and but the origin was definitely Moroccan.